Welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Smart podcast. Each week, we interview the best and brightest in physical therapy, wellness, and entrepreneurship. We give you cutting-edge information you need to live your best life, healthy, wealthy, and smart. The information in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be used as personalized medical advice. And now, here's your host, Dr. Karen Litzy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Net Health. Net Health are the creators of Redoc, powered by XFit, which is a cloud-based, fully integrated EMR and billing solution, plus opt in to completely outsourced billing services. That's the best way to optimize revenue. Imagine PT billing, coding, and compliance experts taking the back office work off your hands and reporting to you. To learn more about Redoc and complete revenue cycle management services, head on over to nethealth.com/healthy. Okay, so now today's episode, as you know, on Healthy, Wealthy, and Smart, I love to feature kick-ass female entrepreneurs who are not only great business people, but are great people. And today's guest is no exception. I'm happy to have on the show today Molly Hayward. She's the visionary founder of Cora, a lifestyle brand giving women a modern method for managing their periods. With body-conscious organic tampons, an elegant delivery experience, and sustainable menstrual products given to girls in developing countries for every monthly supply shipped. Cora represents the smart, chic, and conscious women of today and is transforming the experience of womanhood in a global scale. She has a deep knowledge of menstruation in both commercial and cultural contexts. Molly was the first entrepreneur in the now-trendy menstrual management space to establish a modern, pro-social brand, presenting the issues of healthier products and women's global social justice to the mainstream female consumer. For more information, visit Cora.life. And you can always go to the show notes for today's episode over at podcast.healthywealthysmart.com to click on all of the links for Cora. What can I say? Molly was amazing. She's smart, she's funny, she's caring, she's one of these entrepreneurs with a social mindset. So today we talked about the story behind Cora, from idea to successful subscription business, how passion and perseverance disrupted the female product industry, the importance of removing unnecessary daily tasks as your business grows. Of course, we talked about how she grew a business, because isn't that what we all want to know more about? And how to position a product to enhance quality of life and foster a worldwide community. So when you hear the story of how Cora was founded, you just get it. You get Molly. You understand her need for social justice, her drive to help women around the world. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to ruin the surprise, so you'll just have to listen here. And thank you all again for listening, and a big thanks for Molly for taking the time out and coming on the podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Molly, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you on.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Now, we were kind of speaking a little bit before we started this recording, and I was saying that, I really love to hear how and why people started their business. I think it's such a great learning experience for any budding entrepreneurs out there. So can you tell us the story behind Cora?
Yes. So I was, 24, and I was actually coming out of the first business that I had helped to start, which was a sustainable clothing company. So I was really passionate about designing businesses for social good. And so I was really in this kind of space of, frankly, like not knowing. I was really kind of trying to figure out what my next move was going to be. Was it a project? Was it another venture? Was it, joining a team? And kind of out of the blue, I was invited to join a volunteer group that was going to Kenya to work on initiatives related to women's health and girls' education. And of course, I was like so excited by this, and I totally jumped at the chance. And I went, and basically when I got there, what I found was that there was just amazing, amazing things happening in these small rural villages related to girls' education. So making sure that there were, number one, schools for the girls to go to, that they could actually get there every day, that they had the uniforms they needed and the books and the tuition and everything else. And then I basically come to find out that the girls will just stay home during the 5 to 6 days of their periods because they can't afford to buy menstrual pads. And I was just blown away. I mean, I had never considered that this was an issue and sort of such a sort of critical moment in these girls' lives and this opportunity that they had to go to school. And then suddenly it was being derailed by this like sort of one aspect that wasn't really being paid attention to. And so I kind of went home, and it started me on this whole journey of actually looking at my experience of having my period. And even though I had never had to go without products, thankfully, I never had a very positive experience of my period. It wasn't something that was celebrated, that made me feel powerful as a woman, especially with the products that I was using. And so really the thought started to develop of, could I create a business that provided really, I think, modern products and a modern experience of managing your period for women here in the US, and tie that back to providing products to girls in need. So that was really kind of how Cora was born.
And what were the girls using there if they weren't using what we here in the United States or, more developed countries use?
Oh my gosh, so many different things. So newspaper, cow dung, ash from a fire pit, sand, pieces of old mattress, old pieces of cloth or rags. It really was kind of different in every community, but it was, just using whatever they could. And oftentimes kind of getting infections and reproductive and urinary tract infections from using kind of unsanitary materials. And so then you're kind of creating a waterfall effect of additional problems, because you might not have easy access to go to a clinic to get treated for that. And so then it's kind of just compounding the problem. So really kind of critical to get something better and safer and healthier.
Yeah. And oftentimes, they say the best businesses are built off such simple ideas. And if you think about it, this one simple idea of just providing menstrual pads to girls in countries where they don't have access to that, or in communities where they don't have access to that, can change a whole community, the cascade of events, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's this virtuous cycle that we've seen, actually, because we all know, or most of us know, that girls' education and female empowerment is completely essential to economic development and poverty alleviation, and that those things in turn actually help to build stronger communities, both economically and socially. The societies in which women have greater equality are more peaceful and more successful and prosperous for everyone. And so I think there's just a really clear link in my mind between providing this essential product that allows a girl to complete her education and sort of go on and pursue whatever she wants to pursue ultimately.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing. Now, so you have this idea. This is the story behind it. How do you make it into an actual business? Because a lot of people have ideas.
Yes.
It's what you do with the ideas that matter. So
Yes.
Can you take us through some of the basic steps that brought you from the idea to where you are today?
Totally. I mean, so when I first had the idea, subscription was not really a thing. Certainly subscription period care was not a thing. And even organic products in period care was not really a thing that you got outside of like Whole Foods or a natural grocery store. So if you didn't have access to those places, or you weren't aware of like organic products, you probably weren't kind of seeking them out. And so really, I just started talking to friends and friends of friends and family members and saying, hey, listen, if I offered to create a custom selection of organic period products for you, tampons, pads, liners, whatever you need, and ship it to your house every month, is that something you might pay me for? And women were like, oh God, yes. It was like so exciting to them that they might, not have to kind of like run out to the store at the last minute every month or every couple months, because they had like run out of what was under their bathroom sink, and they're like, oh shit, I have my period. Like, I need to get these products. And so it was this really interesting, I think, problem solution for women here. And then they were even more excited that like every time I shipped their box, I was providing a month's supply of pads to a girl in need. And so really it started super, super small, and I can't sort of stress that enough. It was really tested within just women I knew, and then women who sort of got turned on to it by word of mouth from those women. And so I think up until I had about 200 women ultimately, before I was actually like, okay, this thing has legs, like let's kind of put the pedal to the metal. And it was around that time that I met my now co-founder and business partner, and we were able to really kind of begin to plan out kind of what the next steps were. And it's certainly different for every business. But I think that like the key takeaway there, that I think is common in most businesses, is like, it does start from a problem that you yourself experience, and then like starting really small, and like just starting, I think, is often like the most critical piece. I'm definitely a perfectionist, and I really like am critical of myself and the things that I do. And so it's like, I don't want to put this out in the world until it's absolutely perfect, and let me build the perfect website and make sure everything looks amazing. And, and then I'll put it out there. And if I build it, they'll come. And I think that is like the thing that, I encourage people the most to try to overcome. Because I think that it is just so critical to get started, because it is such a learn as you go process. I do not have a business school education. I was a liberal arts, student in college, and, really just got a lot of my business experience in my first job, and then in the first company that I started. And so it really, and frankly, some of those things from the earlier experience really didn't translate to this business, because it was such a different model. And so I think, again, like, can't stress enough that you just kind of have to get started, and figure out like if there's a market for what you want to sell.
Yeah. And I love that. I think what my big takeaways from that is that you started your research with people who you know. And what a great place to start from, because those people, I know a lot of people think, oh, if you start with friends and family, they won't give you the honest feedback. And I disagree. They're the people who will give you
who are willing to do it and stick with you.
Yeah.
Because later down the road, if somebody doesn't like what you're doing, they're probably just going to cancel or stop working with you. And I think that really being able to like tweak things and kind of course correct with that early group is super critical.
And how long did it take for you to go from this sort of initial research with the group of people who know you and like you versus, bringing this to the masses?
Yeah. I mean, so it was like probably a year before I even started like shipping product to people. So I like found out this was an issue, started thinking about it, started researching, talking to people, trying to understand the industry. Then I started shipping, literally kind of like out of my bedroom. And then it was about another year later until I kind of redesigned the entire experience. We were producing our own products and actually launched officially and started, to kind of invest in our growth.
Got it. Got it. So, doesn't happen overnight.
Definitely not.
Takes a lot of long days.
Don't
and
be
I'm
discouraged.
Sure working weekends, you're not taking every weekend off and every night off.
Nope.
And the other thing that I really love that you said is I think you sort of combined the, what am I passionate about? What do I love to do? What am I good at? And then what you said, what will people pay me for?
Yes.
I always tell people, like, if you're passionate about something and you're good at something, but no one's going to pay you for it, that's a hobby.
Right.
That's a hobby. So you need all three of those to come together. So I'm really glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was, I certainly don't think this should be a litmus test for everyone, but I was so excited and passionate about the idea that, like, I was like working at nights and working on weekends, like you said. And like, it was like, I just couldn't not do it. It felt so important to me. It felt so exciting at that, at the time that I originally started, I was also working a full-time job. Like, I was consulting and doing other projects just to kind of like pay the bills. And so like, it really did take additional effort to like make sure it sort of continued to roll forward. But I think that like, if you have found that thing that you just have to do, I think like it's worth staying with it. It's worth pursuing it. It's worth kind of making those smaller sacrifices. And, I really can't stress enough like how many moments there were in that time where it was like, I don't even know if this is going to work. Is this going to work? Like, it's, and I just, kept going and
kept going.
Yeah.
And how do you, this is probably a question that a lot of people probably have in their minds, is how do you get funding to make all this happen?
Yeah. So, I think it was pretty clear from the beginning that this was a really big opportunity and a really big, industry to kind of begin disrupting. And so, really the process of raising our first round was first kind of going to the immediate people in our network. So certainly kind of that early funding was sort of, I would say like 50% kind of friends and family. And then kind of 50% institutional or like angel.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, the process of that was really like, okay, who can we like get to, I think, without kind of like cold emailing. But then beyond that, it's like every time you talk to someone, whether they are into your idea, whether they want to invest in your idea, it's like, it's asking that question of like, is there anyone else that you think we should be talking to? If we're not a good fit for you, that's fine. We get it. Like, but can you recommend 2 other people and make those introductions for us? And most people are totally willing to do that. But I think that, foundationally, in terms of like what you actually need in order to do that, it's a pretty specific kind of business. And I think a lot of businesses, don't necessarily need to raise funding. I think if you're in a service business, it's so much easier to kind of get a bit of traction without huge, massive amounts of capital. For us, being a product, a physical product, selling a physical product and, kind of acquiring customers online, like if you want to do that rapidly, you need a good amount of money to do it. And so I think that was really like where the decision-making was. But, I think if people can bootstrap, it's, that's a great option too. And I think like I would stress that so much in terms of fundraising. I think it's probably the question that I get the most from other entrepreneurs. It's like, should I be raising money? How much money should I be raising? What should the approach be? And I think that unfortunately, like it is very one size, or it isn't one size fits all. It is not one answer fits all. It is very specific to what your goals are, what your business model is, and what your potential, for growth is. Because at the end of the day, you take people's money and they expect quite a big return on that. And so if that's not the trajectory you're on, it's probably better to let it, grow organically and you maintain that equity and that ownership, and take that route. But I think, I know it's not helpful, but
No, I
it's,
think
there's sort of not one answer necessarily.
No, I agree. And I think what you said was perfect. And, I'm sure that there are people out there who can help you decide what you need.
Totally.
Those people are
Yes.
there. So if you don't know personally, those people are there. You can get financial advisors for your business, and they'll help you along the way, and
Definitely.
if you're having trouble with those projections. And I
Yes.
loved that when that you said you would make that ask of, thank you for your time. We're not the best fit. Hey, can you, hook us up,
Yeah.
recommend us if you
Who
think,
would you recommend we speak to? And
I think that's great.
Even if they couldn't make the personal connection, or they didn't know anyone personally at XYZ firm or X angel investor, even to know who that person or that firm was and then go knock on their door was super helpful, just to find your way. But I think, in terms of investors, like, everybody kind of has their sweet spot and their kind of space that they like to invest in. And so it's worth kind of doing as much research as you can to figure out, like, okay, who is investing in our case, consumer goods, and is sort of channel agnostic. So, has experience investing in e-commerce based businesses, but also businesses who sell at brick and mortar retail.
Yeah, I think that's all great advice. And for any entrepreneur out there listening, I would take this advice and really sit down and look at your business and really think about what it is you want to accomplish and where you see yourself going, and then just put it all down on paper, brainstorm, and see what you need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think, getting help in that early process. Like, I mean, I think that there are more resources now than ever, particularly for female entrepreneurs, and being supported by the female investor and VC community, and really wanting to make sure that women are represented in the companies that are getting that capital.
Yeah, great advice.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, Net Health. PTs, what do you hope to accomplish in 2018? I bet providing even better patient care and increasing revenue are top on the list. First, expand your visit capacity. Then get paid for your services, ramp up patient engagement, and eliminate worries about documentation and compliance. The good news is there's one solution that brings it all to the table. Redoc, powered by XFit, is a cloud-based, fully integrated EMR and billing solution. Imagine PT billing, coding, compliance experts taking the back office work off your hands and reporting to you. Learn more about Redoc and complete revenue cycle management services at nethealth.com/healthy. Now, something that you had mentioned, you're looking to find your subscribers online. So a great way to do that would kind of be through social media and things like that, right?
Yep.
So, we were talking a little bit, like I said beforehand, and, when you look at people's social media accounts, whether it be, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, what have you, Twitter, you see the highlight reel. You see all the good stuff that's going on. So if we go onto Cora, of course, we're going to see all the great work that you're doing here in the US and you're doing abroad, which is amazing. But I have to think that there have been some struggles on the way. So could you maybe talk about one or two struggles you've had and what you've learned from it, so that the listeners can kind of learn from you?
Yes, definitely. So I think, like, one of the first things that sort of comes to mind is the operational complexity of running the type of business that we do with physical products. I mean, there have been multiple times where we've had to spend 3x on shipping, because we had to air freight 40 pallets of essentially cotton, from Europe to the US because, we didn't place an order quickly enough, or there was some sort of a delay, or there was a holdup, and chaos totally ensues. And I think that, it's hard to even land on one single anecdote, because I think that, while we're a super strong team and I think we run a really great business, it's kind of chaos every day. Like there's always a fire to put out. There is always something that went wrong. There is always something that is like 3 weeks behind schedule or more, because it's just a constant sort of flow of competing priorities. And so I think that, it's definitely like, it's kind of more of just like a constant rather than, at least for us, thankfully, having like a big blowout moment where like something went horribly wrong. Knock on wood, that hasn't, happened to us. But I think it's sort of, you're almost operating at like a level of, constant vigilance. Because like the nature of trying to make everything happen that needs to happen in kind of this day and age and the pace of life is just super challenging.
And then how do you not get lost in the fires? Meaning, how do you keep the big picture in mind and keep the team motivated to keep pushing forward? Because, day to day, if you're always putting out fires, then what happens to the big vision?
Totally. I mean, I think that has been, something that has been a skill that I have learned. Really for me, it's kind of making sure that either on like a weekly basis or a monthly basis or even just a quarterly basis, that I kind of get to step back and zoom out and look at everything that is happening. And, some of the best advice that I got early on that I started to implement was looking at the list of things that you're doing every day, or that your team is doing every day, and identifying the sort of lowest 20%, meaning the sort of most time consuming, most stressful, most expensive things you're doing that are actually not contributing to your growth or whatever your goal might be, and eliminating them and constantly cutting out that bottom 20%. And that to me has been so critical. And I think one of the challenges for us, and probably for a lot of early stage companies, is like, there is just a, plethora and cornucopia of things that you can do, between, the types of things you can do on social media and marketing and brand partnerships and PR and all of these things. It's like, they're all great, but I think it's super important to try to narrow your focus early on and do fewer things better, rather than trying to have your hands on absolutely every like potential opportunity and kind of like jumping at every opportunity that comes through, to really, really be hyper vigilant and sort of ruthless in the way that you actually choose to spend your time and being really intentional about it. I think that you can, I'm certainly guilty of this, get into that reactionary mode where like things and opportunities are coming at you and you're just like, yes, it's all happening. This is exactly what I wanted. This is going to be a huge opportunity for growth, for exposure. Yes. And then you ultimately realize like you're spread totally thin. Not a single one of those things was like a big, massive event for your business. And at the end of the day, you're just kind of exhausted and you don't have that much to show for it. And I think that, even from a very early stage when, you might feel like people are doing you more of a favor to work with you than you are doing them a favor, that you're still really, really intentional about what you're doing. Because I think that at the end of the day, you still only have 24 hours in a day. And to really make the most of that and get clear about what's important to you and your business and the way you spend your time. And even though it sort of might be a slightly, slower growth trajectory or path, I think actually you get such a higher quality return ultimately, and you feel so much better about what you're doing.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And, speaking of really having the big picture and what you're passionate about in mind, one of the big things with Cora is the giving back. So we spoke, earlier, how you said when someone purchases Cora, it's delivered you deliver a month's worth of menstrual products to a girl in need. So why is that aspect so important to you and so important to the business?
So, I mean, it's so important to me, I think, because it was just that moment where I was actually there kind of witnessing it happening to girls and seeing, firsthand just how excited they were about going to school, how much they were sacrificing to go to school. I mean, literally like walking 10 miles each way to get to and from school. Like that is the level. And that this one thing could actually make such a change in her life. So for me, it was like this super personal experience that I had that really like galvanized me to try to help. But for Cora's customers, like it's so interesting because I have not had the experience of women, even who have never been to those places, met these girls, like, had kind of the experience I had, such an emotional connection because of I think the level of empathy that most women are able to have for a girl who would have to go through her period without having, safe and healthy products. Because I think we've all been in the situation of not having the product when we need it, and leaking and like panicking and like all of the emotions that go into that, and just how personal it is as a woman, this experience, that to be able to, I think, actually make such a huge difference in the life of a girl through this product that you're going to buy anyway. And I think it just really, I think it just makes women feel really good. And like, that is so amazing. That's why we give, because we know it's the right thing to do, but also because it activates something in us, and that communal, biological, I don't have the words for it, but the biological level on which we all connect to each other, and that we feel good about helping each other, and that we have this deep sense of empathy and compassion. I think it really activates that part of us, and it feels really good to be able to help.
Yeah. And I think it also creates this sense of community of women. We may not know each other. They may live across the world, but like you said, we've all been there, and we want to make sure that all these people in our community get to feel the same way we do. And that's what makes people happy, and it makes people proud that they're part of an organization, I think, that can make such a difference in people's lives. And I'm sure that's where a lot of the customers, your customer base, at least that's in my opinion, may feel, because you're part of a tribe, you're part of a community, you're doing something really cool, you're helping people by doing something you're going to do anyway. So it's like a win-win-win.
I mean,
and
I think
the product's cute.
Thank you. Yes, they're made for grown-up women. I noticed on the video, neither of us are wearing like pink.
No, we're not.
We're wearing black and gray. I mean, I think that's what's so exciting to me, is the community aspect of it. I mean, being part of this larger movement that's happening, around the globe, but I think certainly in our country, in so many very specific ways where women are, more than ever, or on topics that weren't discussed previously, really speaking out, standing up, standing in their power, taking control of situations in which, we weren't in control before. And I think that, we know how essential education is to allowing women to assume that type of position in society, and have the ability to really be, I think, have self-determination. And that's really what this whole global movement is about, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And, we have time for about one more question, and kind of, we're going to roll with where we're at here. But knowing where, and this is what I ask everyone who comes on the show, but knowing where you are now in your career and in your life, what advice would you give to yourself as that new grad, fresh-faced, ready to tackle the world right out of college?
I would say trust the process, trust life. I look back at that college grad who, certainly had a lot of ambition and passion and maybe, a good amount of direction, but I certainly hit a lot of bumps and sort of moments of confusion along the way. But now looking back, like every single thing that happened led to the next thing, that led to the next thing, that led to the next good thing. And to see where I am today versus then, and see everything that I know now versus then, it's like it was all for the best. And, I still trust that like the things that happen today are for, the best that's yet to come. Even when they feel really shitty in the moment, and are really confusing and you wish they weren't happening. It's like, I think maintaining that mindset of like trusting the unfolding and just following what feels good to you and really knowing that, that things are falling into place. But I think that, especially for entrepreneurs and people who are, out on their own, out on the sort of edge of everything. I mean, it's super risky. And so it's really exciting too. And I think, I think about something that I think, Jim Carrey has this amazing documentary out right now. And sort of his insight in that is amazing. But he talks about his dad, who was like kind of a really funny guy and a musician, but ended up being an accountant at the end of the day because he couldn't make money being a musician unless he moved to America, and it was this whole thing. So he became an accountant, didn't love it, was kind of miserable for 40 years. And then after 40 years, he was laid off and completely back at zero. And so the message was like, you could lose it all 40 years into a career that you absolutely hate. So you might as well do what you love, because you could fall off the cliff at any time. So like, just do what you love. And I think that's really the message, do what you love and sort of like trust that things are going to continue moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I love it. That is wonderful advice. Thank you so much for that. And now, if people want to find out more about Cora and maybe they want to start getting in on this community with all this great product, where can they do that?
So our website is cora.life. And we're also on Instagram and across social at Cora Women.
Great. Well, Molly, thank you so much. I think you gave so much great advice to any entrepreneur out there, and your passion and spirit comes through. So thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Karen. It was so great to be here with you.
Thanks. And everybody, just so you know, all the links that we spoke about today will be at the show notes at podcast.healthywealthysmart.com. And thank you all for listening. Have a great couple of days and stay healthy, wealthy, and smart.
So a huge thanks to Molly Hayward, founder of Cora, and to our sponsor, Net Health. So if you want to expand your visit capacity, get paid for your services, ramp up your patient engagement, and eliminate worries about documentation, it's all in one place. That's Redoc, powered by XFit. You can learn more about Redoc and the complete revenue cycle management services at nethealth.com/healthy. So a huge thanks to our sponsor, Net Health, and thank you to you for listening.
Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to the podcast at podcast.healthywealthysmart.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media.